The relationship between knowledge and faith is important. Father Andres, who happened to have been here on Monday, this past Monday, spoke about this a little bit in his homily. Knowledge is important. It matters. It really helps us. But if it doesn't turn into action, what good is it for us? Knowledge, for some of us, we have a reservoir and we just try to fill it with knowledge. And it can be a really, really good thing for us. It just builds a strong foundation. Others, a little bit of knowledge is just all they need. Knowledge is important, but without action, it's not enough. I mention that because today we celebrate the Solemnity of the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus. And it's something that I think we know a little bit about. I know I knew a little bit about it. But I had to ask myself, how much am I acting on that knowledge? I've heard my wife speak about the devotion. I've heard her talk about St. Margaret Mary and the promises and the First Fridays. I've heard her talk about it, so I've understood it. But did I? How much did I really understand the Most Sacred Heart of Jesus? So much that it compelled me into action. That was my question to myself. So let's start with some knowledge. The First Friday devotion, the Sacred Heart of Jesus, began in about 1670 when a priest in France named St. Giovanni Eudes said the first Mass dedicated to the Sacred Heart. He had the Sacred Heart placed on his soul for the years before that and composed prayers to be said at that Mass, and then finally got his bishop to approve the prayers and approve the actual Mass, and so he did. He said that first Mass in 1670. In 1673, only a couple years later, and still in France, St. Margaret Mary Alacoque, a French sister, a nun, had a vision of our Lord. Actually, then another, and then another, and a total of 4. And he expressed to her the importance of his Sacred Heart to us and how we needed to be made aware of it because we seem to be indifferent to it. We, mankind. Now, it's amazing. This is 1670, and I think it's applicable today. We, mankind, seem to be indifferent to his Sacred Heart. Like, we know it's there, but what are we doing about it to access his Sacred Heart? Because his Sacred Heart is this offering to us, people, mankind, to help us with our lives. And it was there for all those years, and our Lord has to come and start reminding people about it. So we did that with Sister Margaret Mary, and that led to Pope Clement XIII approving the devotion in 1756, and then Pope Pius IX putting the feast on the universal calendar in 1856, and Leo XIII consecrating the world to the Sacred Heart in 1899, and a lot of numbers and facts, all of which are important, all of which matter. In 1956, Pius XII wrote an encyclical. A lot of popes wrote about the Sacred Heart. And he began his encyclical with the line from Isaiah, which we had as our responsorial psalm today. It's interesting, the responsorial psalm is usually a psalm, but today it was a canticle from Isaiah. And that tells you something about how important it was, what it was they were trying to say. You will draw water joyfully from the springs of salvation. That was our responsorial. And that is so important in understanding what it is this is about. His Sacred Heart is a spring of living water to us. It is what we need to sustain ourselves. It's what we need, this living water. And it's been there the whole time. And we, I'm speaking about mankind, are just failing to approach it and appreciate it and take it. So our Lord comes and he speaks to St. Margaret Mary, talks about the 12 promises, talks about the First Friday devotions, and many of us got that message, and that's why we're here on Fridays. We come on the First Friday for that devotion. But it's more. It's more than just us coming for ourselves, to take care of ourselves, for the world. And when we come to fulfill this obligation for these First Fridays, the ideal is that we're filled with this water, this fire. We're filled with it, and it compels us to go out and make people aware of this grace of his heart. It is bursting with grace that he wants to give mankind, and we're not taking advantage of it. We, mankind, we, the 100 of us that are here, 150 that are here, that's fantastic. The world needs to understand this. Altaloma needs to understand this. Our families and our friends need to understand this. They need to understand that Jesus is offering his sacred heart filled with graces to help us with our lives today, right now. Our hearts need to be open to receive this grace so that we in turn can take it out. How do we open our hearts to receive this grace? It's a very personal question. How each of us opens our own hearts to receive this grace is a very personal question. It's a question that each of us have to ask and have to pursue. For some of you, that knowledge matters. For some of you, studying and studying and studying and studying really kind of builds up this momentum inside you. For some of you, it's reflection. It's just spending some time there or in the chapel, at your house. If you happen to have a little prayer space at your house, there, wherever it is. But finding that place, that way to have the Sacred Heart affect each of us so that we can in turn help spread the devotion to others. That's it. Jesus is not one who pushes himself on people. He's so gentle about everything. There's a line in the first reading which you just wouldn't even notice. I drew them with human cords with bands of love. Compare that to oxen or work animals who are being driven. He doesn't drive us with whips. He draws us with love. He draws us with love. And that's the model. We can't compel people. We can't beat them. We draw them with love. And so that's our takeaway today. Let's ask our Lord to give us the grace that he's dying to give to us. Fill our hearts with that flame of love, so we'll take it out and help others know him as well.